I don't know who's going to hear me. Maybe no one. Maybe someone who doesn't even know what all this was. But I need to speak before my voice disappears for good in the wind that slips through the cracks of this old wood. I'm just an old man now, skin full of lines, eyes heavy with time. But I was a boy once, and one day, one of those days when you don't really understand what's going on, they took everything from me. Freedom. I didn't even know what that was, but my mother was all I had that felt whole. I had no toys, no bed, no pretty name, but I had her arms. And it was that day, the day they ripped her from me, that I learned what pain was. Not the kind that cuts or bruises. It was something else. A pain that doesn't bleed but never stops. A pain that sleeps with you and wakes up before you do. This story I'm about to tell isn't meant to shock anyone. It's just so it doesn't get forgotten. Because if I close my eyes right now, I can still see her last look. And if you've got the courage to stay with me to the end, maybe you'll understand. And if you do, if this touches you somehow, subscribe, not for me, but for her, and for all the others who were left in silence. I remember the night the world went silent, not the kind of silence that comes with peace, but the one that wraps around your chest and squeezes, the kind that makes you feel like something terrible is creeping right behind you. I was lying on the ground, on that worn out cloth my mother used to fold into a bed for me. It was late, later than I'd ever stayed awake, but I couldn't sleep. Something felt wrong. I didn't know what, but my skin knew, my bones knew. Even the dogs had stopped barking. The air was thick to still, like the earth itself was holding its breath. I looked at the door and saw that faint light slipping through the cracks. My mother was still up, pacing quietly. She always did that when something was bothering her. She didn't want me to notice, but I did. A child notices everything when silence speaks louder than words. Then came the sound, distant at first, like a storm too far to touch, but growing louder. Hooves, one horse, then two, then many, and voices, sharp and angry, cutting through the night like knives. My mother froze. I remember how she grabbed me and pressed my face into her stomach, whispering something I couldn't understand. Her hands were trembling. I had never seen her scared before. Tired, yes. Sad, always. But scared, that was new. That's when I knew the world was about to change. She kissed my head and told me, "Don't make a sound. Don't come out, no matter what you hear." She pulled me behind the barrels, the ones near the wall, and covered me with a piece of old cloth that smelled like smoke and sweat and fear. And then she left. I could hear her footsteps walking slowly back toward the front of the hut. And that was the last time I felt safe. What came next is a blur of noise and shadows. Heavy boots stomping, doors crashing open, people screaming, others begging. I heard someone call her name, a man's voice, harsh, then a slap, then nothing. I didn't see it, but I heard it in her breath, that little gasp she made when the pain hit. I covered my ears, but that didn't help. You can't unhear the sound of your world breaking. I sat there, knees to my chest, rocking like I had seen her do when the tears came late at night. I tried to pray, though I didn't know to who. I just wanted it to stop. I wanted her to come back, to tell me it was over, that everything would be okay. But that moment never came. The shouting faded, the hooves thundered off into the distance again. And then, silence, real silence, the kind that follows a storm. When everything lies broken, I waited. I don't know how long. It could have been minutes, hours, maybe the whole night. But she didn't come back. The door never opened. The light never returned. I finally crawled out, slow, scared, not knowing what I'd find. The house was a mess. Her scarf was on the floor. A clay bowl had been broken. There was blood near the doorway. Not much, just enough to let you know something had gone wrong. I picked up the scarf and held it to my face. It still smelled like her. That soft, earthy scent of smoke and soap and something sweet she used to put in her hair. That's when the tears came. Not loud, not wild, just slow, hot, heavy. That night, I didn't lose just my mother. I lost my breath. I lost the sound of her voice, the way she used to hum when she braided my hair, the way she whispered goodnight. I didn't know it yet, but I had lost everything. They took more than a person. They took my beginning, and after that night, the world never sounded the same again, not to me. It's strange how silence can speak so loud, how it can tell you something's gone without saying a word. That silence has followed me my whole life, every time I try to sleep, every time the wind gets too quiet, I hear it again. The silence from that night, the night the world went silent for good. I was hiding. I don't even remember how I ended up behind that old barrel, but my legs had taken me there on their own. Like some part of me already knew what was coming and couldn't face it. I was small, maybe 6, maybe 7, and I could feel my heart banging inside my chest like it wanted out. The air was heavy, thick like mud, and my skin prickled with a fear I had never felt before. I heard the hooves first horses pounding against the ground like thunder, and then voices, sharp, barking orders I didn't understand, followed by footsteps running. People shouting, someone crying far off. I knew something was wrong. My mother had looked strange that morning. She didn't sing while she tied my shirt, like she usually did. Her eyes were far away, not looking at me but through me, like she saw something only she could see. When I asked what was wrong, she just said, "Stay close today. Don't go near the fields." And I listened for once. I listened, but staying close didn't help. It didn't save her. I heard them dragging people out. The voices louder, cooler. I peeked through a crack in the wood. I saw the men on horses with ropes and sticks, grabbing the ones who couldn't run fast enough. And then I saw her, my mother. They had her, arms tied behind her back, pushing her forward like she was nothing. Her dress was torn at the shoulder, and her feet were bare. She didn't scream, she didn't fight. She just walked, slow and steady, her head held high like she wasn't about to be swallowed by the darkness. I wanted to run to her. Every part of me screamed to move, to call her name, to wrap my arms around her waist and never let go. But my legs wouldn't move. I was frozen, and then she stopped walking. She looked around, her eyes searching. I held my breath, and when she found me, when her eyes met mine, I felt like the whole world had stopped spinning. She didn't cry. She didn't call my name. She didn't even try to come to me. She just looked at me. That look, it wasn't fear. It wasn't even sadness. It was something deeper, something I didn't understand then, but I think I do now. It was goodbye, a goodbye without words, a goodbye from a mother who knew she wouldn't come back, a look that said, live, even without me, survive. And then they pulled her away, just like that, like she had never been there, like she was just another shadow in the dirt. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I didn't even cry. I just stayed there, behind that barrel, feeling like the air had left the world. And that look, that last look she gave me, it burned into me. It carved itself into the back of my mind where no time can touch it. I've lived a long life since then. I've seen cruelty. I've seen blood. I've seen the kind of suffering that makes you forget how to speak. But nothing ever hurt like that look. Nothing ever stayed the way it did. I was a boy, but in that moment, I stopped being one. Something died in me that day, something I've never gotten back. And now, even all these years later, when I close my eyes, I don't see fields or whips or chains. I see her face, her eyes, that silent goodbye. That's why I talk now. That's why I remember. Because if I don't, then who will? She had no grave, no name carved in stone, no prayers said over her body, but she had me, and I carry that look with me every single day. The next morning came, but it didn't feel like morning. The sun rose, yes, but there was no warmth in it, just a pale light, like it didn't want to shine. The slave quarters were quiet, too quiet. It was a silence that didn't come from rest. It came from something broken. I sat alone on the dirt floor, still holding the scarf my mother had dropped. I hadn't slept. I hadn't moved much either. My stomach growled, but I ignored it. Hunger didn't matter anymore. Nothing did. The others started to stir, slowly, faces peeking from behind torn cloth and wooden boards, eyes wide and hollow. No one said anything. We all knew. We all felt it. Something had changed. The quarters, once filled with whispers, songs, the rustle of hands braiding hair or shucking corn, now felt like a tomb, a place where spirits lingered but didn't speak. I saw the old woman who used to hum every morning. She just sat there, staring at the wall. A boy younger than me clung to his sister, asking where their mother went. She didn't answer, just pulled him tighter. Even the elders, the ones who'd survived the worst storms, looked lost. That's what happens when they take someone like her, someone who held people together with her presence, who made a dark place bearable with her laugh or her stories. When she disappeared, it was like someone ripped out the center of everything. I didn't speak for days, maybe more. I don't remember. I wandered like a ghost, stepping round the fire pit, avoiding the places where she used to sit. Sometimes I thought I saw her shadow in the corner of my eye, but when I turned, it was just the wind moving the cloth. I remember one night lying flat on my back, staring at the ceiling. There was a hole above my head, just a crack, but through it, I could see a single star. I made up stories in my head, pretending that maybe she was that star now. Looking back at me, watching, it was the only thing that kept me breathing, but even that hurt, because I didn't want a memory. I wanted her hand, her voice. I wanted her to be real. Every night the whip cracked outside. I wondered if she could hear it, wherever she was, if her soul flinched like mine did. The children stopped playing. The laughter disappeared. Even the babies cried quieter, like the sadness had soaked into their bones too. People moved slower, spoke less. Some didn't speak at all. It was like a fog had rolled in and settled over our heads, a weight we couldn't shake off. I started avoiding the others, not because I didn't care, but because I couldn't take their eyes. Every time someone looked at me, I could see it, the same question I had by her. Why did they take her and not me? Why do some vanish and others are left to carry the silence? I remember sitting by the wall, dragging my finger in the dirt, drawing circles over and over. One of the elders passed by and stopped. He didn't say much, just looked at me and said, "You saw her go, didn't you?" I nodded. He nodded too, slow and heavy. Then he said something that never left me. "You'll have to hold her now. And here." He pointed to his chest and walked away. I didn't understand then. I didn't want to. I didn't want to hold her memory. I wanted her voice, her warmth, the way she used to hum when she cooked. But over time, the pain didn't go away. It changed shape. It settled into me like a second skin. I still see that star through the crack. It's still there, after all these years, watching. And sometimes, on nights when the wind gets quiet and the fire burns low, I talk to it. I tell her what's happened, how the world kept moving even after it should have stopped. I don't know if she hears, but I speak anyway. If you've carried this far with me, maybe you can feel it too. Maybe you understand why I keep telling it. So if you're here, listening, please subscribe. Let this story not vanish like she did. I don't remember when they first told me I had to work. There was no ceremony, no moment where someone looked me in the eye and said, "It's time." It just happened. One day, I was the boy who hid in corners and tried to sleep beside what was left of his mother's sand, and the next I was being pulled by the arm, handed a rusted tool, and pointed to a field. I remember the tool was too big for my hand. My fingers wrapped around it awkwardly. My palms already raw before the sun even rose. The man who gave it to me didn't say a word, just nodded toward the line of backs bending in the distance. That's where I was meant to go. No voice, no kindness, just a silent command. Go. I walked toward them, my feet bare, each step pressing into the cold mud like I was sinking into a new life I never asked for. The field stretched forever. Men and women moved like shadows under the sky, hunched, slow, mechanical. Some glanced at me, most didn't. No one smiled. There was no welcome. I didn't need one. I knew what this was. They gave me a row, said nothing about how to do it, just pointed. So I mimicked the woman nearest me, watching how she swung the blade, how her body rocked forward then back. I tried to do the same. The tool was heavy. My arms shook. The first time I struck the stalk, it didn't even bend. I tried again and again until my hands bled. No one stopped me. That night, I couldn't lift my arms. I lay on my side, muscles on fire, palms split and stinging, and I cried into the dirt, not loud, just quiet sobs, more like breathing that hurt. No one noticed. Pain was just part of the air there. No one asked if I was okay, because no one ever was. In the days that followed, my body began to change. The softness faded. My hands turned to leather. My back grew used to the weight of bending. My feet stopped feeling the sharp stones under them. I started waking before the sun without anyone shaking me. Fear did that. It trains your body faster than any whip. You've learned to move before you're moved, to obey before you're punished, to lower your eyes even when no one is looking. There were moments, tiny ones, when I almost forgot I had ever been anything else. A laugh would escape someone's lips, and I wouldn't remember what laughter felt like. I'd hear a lullaby hum to a baby and wonder who used to sing to me. Time twisted everything. The days melted together, and I became part of the field. Just another shape under the heat, another set of arms to harvest what we'd never taste. There were no birthdays, no names, only nicknames or numbers. My name, whatever my mother had whispered when she first held me, was gone, replaced by something short, sharp, barked at me by the overseer like I was a mule. Boy, they called me, or you, nothing that belonged to me. One day, I saw my reflection in the water trough. I didn't recognize the face. My cheeks had sunk. My eyes looked hollow, and in that moment, I realized something terrible. I had stopped expecting her to come back. The thought hit me like a slap. I stood there, dripping, staring into my own face, and the sadness was so deep it felt like drowning. I had survived. My body had learned how, but the boy who had waited for his mother behind the barrel, he was gone. What was left was a worker, a slave, something shaped by command and silence. I wasn't the only one. I saw other boys just like me, eyes that should have been playing, mouths that should have been smiling, all bent, all broken in quiet ways. Some whispered to each other at night, trading stories like stolen candy. Others stayed silent. I was one of them. I didn't speak unless spoken to. Words felt dangerous. Hope felt dangerous. And when the overseer passed by, everyone's heads dropped like rain had started to fall. That was childhood in that place. Not a phase, but a death. A slow, deliberate stripping away of softness, turned into skin that didn't bruise as easily. Hearts that beat quieter so they wouldn't get noticed. That's how they wanted us. Quiet, obedient, hollowed out, but deep down, something still. Beat, faint, stubborn. Maybe not hope, not yet, but something that refused to die. Something waiting, even if I didn't understand what it was. He was already there when I arrived. I don't know how long he'd been part of that place, long enough for his back to be bent like a question mark and his hands to look like tree bark. They called him Cho, but never with affection. It was more like a label, something stuck to a thing too old to bother naming. He moved slower than the rest of us, but no one dared rush him. There was something about him, something silent but firm, like the earth itself. I first noticed him because he didn't look down when the overseer passed. He didn't look up either. He just stared straight ahead, calm, like the whip didn't reach him anymore. He was the only one like that. One morning, I stumbled while lifting a sack that was too heavy. My legs buckled, and the whole thing collapsed over me. No one helped. The others kept working, heads low, arms steady. That's how we survived. But Cho, he came over without a word, lifted the sack like it was nothing, and looked me in the eye. Not down at me, not through me, right at me. He said, "You don't fight the weight, you move with it." Then he walked away. I didn't understand what he meant, but those were the first words anyone had spoken to me in weeks. After that, he started showing up. Not in obvious ways. He'd walk beside me in the field, slow his pace to match mine, shift his hoe when mine was off rhythm. He never corrected me out loud, just made it so I could follow without shame. At night, when the others slept or murmured prayers, he sat near the fire, eyes lost in the flames. I'd sneak glances at him, trying to figure out what kind of man could still look calm after so many years in chains. One night, I got the courage to sit close. I didn't speak, just sat. After a while, he said, "Pain teaches. If it don't kill you, it carves you into something harder." I nodded. He nodded back. That was the start. He told me stories, but not the kind with heroes. His stories were lessons, wrapped in memory. He told me how to hide my fear in my breath, how to take a beating without letting them see it broke me, how to spot the moments when silence was stronger than defiance. He taught me to chew certain leaves to ease the pain in my joints, how to sleep with one ear open, how to count the stars to keep track of time, even when they changed our names or made the days blend into one another. He never told me his real name. I never told him mine. Names were dangerous. What we shared was older than that. He started calling me Malik, and somehow it didn't sound cruel when he said it. It sounded like someone still saw me. Once, I asked him how he survived for so long. He didn't answer right away. Then he said, "I stopped waiting to be saved. Started saving pieces of myself, a memory here, a song there." I held on to things they couldn't reach. That stayed with me. I started doing the same. In my mind, I stored the sound of my mother's voice, the smell of her scarf, the way her eyes looked for mine. I didn't tell him, but I think he knew. We worked together, side by side, for months, maybe years. It's hard to know. Seasons passed. My arms grew stronger, my heart a little quieter. The pain didn't stop, but it didn't drown me anymore. He was never kind in the way people think of kindness. He didn't pat my head or say it would be okay. He told me the truth, that some of us would die without names, that no one would come, that the only way to keep breathing was to carry something inside they couldn't chain. I watched him once when they beat a younger man nearly to death. Joe didn't move. He didn't flinch. But later, that night, he tore a piece of his shirt to wrap the boy's wounds. He didn't say a word, just handed it over and walked away. I started doing what he did, not just with the tools, but with how I looked at things. I learned to read danger in a glance. I learned which guards were quick with the whip and which ones just wanted to finish the day. I learned to pretend I was dumber than I was, slower than I felt. All things he showed me, all things that kept me alive. And then one morning, he didn't get up. His body just stayed there, curled on the ground like the wind had finally worn it down. They dragged him out like he was nothing. No one said his name. No one cried. But that night, I lit a piece of cloth and let it burn in silence for him, for what he gave me. He didn't raise me. He didn't save me. But he taught me how to walk through hell without forgetting I still had a soul. The day started heavy, like the air knew something before we did. Clouds had gathered through the night, thick and low, rolling and slow like a warning. The wind didn't blow like usual, it whispered, not in words, but in pressure. You could feel it in your chest, in your teeth, like something coming. We still worked, rain or shine. The field didn't wait. I was already sweating when the first drop hit my shoulder. Big, fat, cold. It wasn't long before the sky opened. Water poured down like it had been holding back for months. Some dropped their tools and raised their faces to the sky. Others just kept swinging, the mud gripping our feet like hands. But there was no joy in it, no laughter. Just that kind of quiet when everyone feels the same fear, but no one says it out loud. That's when the shouting began. The overseer didn't care for storms, said it made us slower, sloppier, like we chose the rain. He rode in fast, face twisted, whip already in hand. He started yelling, accusing people of faking injury, of dragging their feet. No one answered. Answering only made it worse, so we kept working, heads low, eyes down. But he needed someone to punish. That's how they kept control, not with order, but with fear. Someone had to bleed so the rest would stay quiet. His eyes landed on Paulo, a man in his 30s, strong, careful, always helped the others when he could. Paulo's knee had been bad for weeks. He moved slower now, dragging his right leg just enough for the overseer to notice. That was all it took. Up. The man barked. Paulo froze. Then he stood, chest out, silent. The rest of us kept our heads down, but I was close enough to hear his breath. Calm, resigned. The whip cracked once, twice, then 5, 10. Paulo didn't scream, not even once. That made it worse. The overseer hated that kind of quiet. He beat him harder until the sound of flesh breaking drowned out the thunder. By then, the rain was coming down in sheets. It wasn't just a storm, it was a flood. Water soaked our clothes, our skin, the earth, but no one moved. We couldn't. We were taught not to. We just listened, watched, waited. Paulo finally dropped. The overseer cursed, kicked him, then turned his horse and rode off. Just like that, I stood there, breathing hard, soaked to the bone, staring at Paulo's body. He was still alive, but barely. I wanted to go to him, but I didn't. Fear held me like a chain. I looked up at the sky. It was crying, That's what it felt like, not just rain grief, deep, ancient grief, like the heavens themselves couldn't take it anymore. I remember thinking, why does the sky care more than the men? And maybe that was the moment something broke in me again. Or maybe something lit, I don't know. All I know is, for the first time, I didn't just feel hurt, I felt anger. Not loud, not wild, but deep. It burned slow, like coal. That night, we carried Paulo back. He didn't speak. His eyes were open, but not looking. The women cleaned him best they could. No one said much. We sat around him, listening to the rain still pounding on the roof. It sounded like footsteps, like someone pacing outside. I lay awake, staring into the dark, trying to find words for what I'd seen. I couldn't. There weren't any. Just that sound of rain, again and again, like it would never end. The next morning, Paulo was gone. No one said it out loud. We just knew. They took his body before sunrise, buried him somewhere outside the quarters. No name, no marker. But that storm, none of us ever forgot it. The way it started before the beating, the way it grew with every crack of the whip, and how it didn't stop until he was still. That wasn't weather. That was morning, and in some small, strange way, it felt like the sky was on our side that day, like it couldn't stop the pain, but it refused to stay silent. I think about that sometimes, how even the sky cried for us when no one else did. I never thought I'd live this long, not because I didn't want to, but because most of us didn't. They broke our bodies fast, burned our names slow, and buried our stories before we had the chance to speak them. But I'm still here, bones, thin as twigs, voice full of gravel, hands that shake when the cold comes in, and somehow, my breath keeps finding its way out of me. One day at a time, they thought silence would finish us. That if they took our mothers, our fathers, our children, our names, they could take the truth too. But it didn't work, not on me, because I remembered. I held it all in the dark corners of my mind, her face, her voice, the sound of her steps outside the hut, the way she laughed when the air was soft. I held the smell of the fire, the sting of the first cut across my back, the taste of dry corn. When hunger had hollowed me out, I didn't let it rot. I carried it, even when it hurt, especially when it hurt. And now, with all this weight behind my eyes, I speak, not loud, not to crowds, but like this in the quiet, to someone willing to listen. I've seen too much to stay quiet. I've buried too many faces. I've whispered too many names into the dirt. But my voice never broke. They took the world from us, but they couldn't take our memory. And that's why I speak now, not for revenge, not for pity, but because if no one remembers us, we never existed, and I did exist. I was there. I saw her taken. I tasted the dirt when they beat Paulo. I felt the wind wrap around me the night chill didn't wake up. I watched the sky cry, and I lived to tell it. That means something, even if just to one person. I never had books, no pen, no pages, just this voice. Rough like the chains that used to drag across the stone floors. But it's mine, and with it, I remember all of them. I say their names even when no one answers back. I close my eyes and see their faces full of fire, full of sorrow, full of something they couldn't erase. I used to dream of freedom like it was some faraway place, floating just beyond reach. Now I know it's not a place, it's memory. It's truth that survives the silence. It's telling what they tried to bury. And so long as I'm breathing, even if it's shallow and tired, I'll keep telling it. Maybe one day this voice will fade. Maybe the world will get too loud again. But tonight, I've spoken, and if you've listened, really listened, then maybe you're carrying a piece of it now too. If you are, subscribe, stay with the others who heard before you. Follow the rest of the stories, they're waiting for you, right here in the shadows I left behind.